Good morning. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Hope your Wednesday's off to a good start. Your outdoor office again. Good second cup of coffee. Just for recently, I've been looking at the lectionary gospel passages for each upcoming Sunday, and that's going to be the same for today. The lectionary gospel is for this year is Luke, and so today we come to Luke chapter 10, and what is certainly one of the most famous parables that Jesus told, the parable of the Good Samaritan. And the only parable I can think of that might be more famous than this, more well known, is that of the prodigal son. But for today, it is the Good Samaritan. And this is such a well-known parable, and the term Good Samaritan has made its way into common usage. There are Good Samaritan laws, in fact. If you see somebody in trouble and you stop to help, you're commonly referred to as a Good Samaritan. If you're out on the water and you see somebody in trouble, a boat that's taken on water or something, and you stop to help them, the Coast Guard will refer to you as a Good Sam, a Good Samaritan. So where does this come from? It comes from Luke 10, 25-37. And behold, a lawyer stood up to put him to the test, saying, Teacher, what shall I do to inherit eternal life? He said to him, What is written in the law? How do you read it? And he answered, You shall love the Lord your God with all of your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength, and with all your mind, and your neighbor as yourself. And he said to him, You have answered correctly. Do this, and you will live. But he, desiring to justify himself, said to Jesus, And who is my neighbor? And Jesus replied, A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him, he passed by on the other side. So likewise the Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side. But a Samaritan, as he journeyed, came to where he was, and when he saw him, he had compassion. He went to him and bound up his wounds, pouring on oil and wine. Then he set him on his own animal, and brought him to an inn, and took care of him. And the next day he took out 2 denarii and gave them to the innkeeper, saying, Take care of him, and whatever more you spend, I will repay you when I come back. Which of these 3 do you think proved to be a neighbor to the man who fell among the robbers? He said to him, The one who showed him mercy. And Jesus said to him, You go and do likewise. And this, again, is the parable of the Good Samaritan, one of the two most famous parables Jesus told. And we find in this parable that there is a lawyer who is going to test Jesus. And people do this pretty frequently in the Gospels, particularly Pharisees and Sadducees, or people in those allied with those two groups, will ask Jesus questions to try to trip him up. So in this case, it's a lawyer, and by lawyer, this is not lawyer as we think of it. We think of a lawyer as someone who practices law in a courtroom, who, if you can hire, if you're charged with a crime, or you hire a lawyer to do real estate law or corporate law or whatever else. In this case, a lawyer is an expert in the Old Testament law. The law is the Old Testament law, and the lawyer is an expert in the Old Testament law. So the lawyer in this case would be somebody who is certainly, very much affiliated with the Pharisees and the scribes, and people who are just super knowledgeable in the law, who would have been able to recite large chunks of it at a time. And he tries to test Jesus. Teacher, how do I gain eternal life? And Jesus answers with a question. He answers with a question. What do you think? Teacher, how do I gain eternal life? And Jesus says, well, what do you think about that? And the lawyer, to his credit, answers correctly. He refers to the two great commandments. The Shema, Deuteronomy 6:4, Hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and might. And you shall love your neighbor as yourself. He quotes the two great commandments in the law. The first one is love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and might. And then the second greatest commandment, love your neighbor as yourself. And Jesus gives him the good old attaboy. Good job. Do this and you will live. If only, at that point, if only the lawyer had kept his big mouth shut, all would be well. But he didn't keep his big mouth shut, and he had to go on and ask this question. Okay, so Jesus, who is my neighbor? In essence, Jesus, tell me who my neighbor is so I can figure out who I don't have to be merciful to. If you know who your neighbor is, this person was not my neighbor and this person isn't, then this person over here, you don't have to show mercy to him or her. And so Jesus answers his question about who his neighbor is with this parable. Man is going from Jerusalem down to Jericho. That was a pretty rugged, pretty difficult road. It's very steeply downhill as you're going from Jerusalem down to Jericho. Jericho is one of it is, I think, in elevation, the lowest city in the world, several hundred feet below sea level, and of course Jerusalem sits on the top of a hill. It is very steeply downhill. It was a rugged road. It was a difficult road to walk. Dangerous path. This traveler gets mugged, beaten, and left half dead on the side of the road. And then here come two different people come along and see him there. The first one is a priest, and we know who the priests were. They led worship in the temple. They presided over the sacrifices in the temple in Jerusalem. And the priest sees him there, and then passes by on the other side of the road, doesn't get close. And then the same thing. The Levite comes up to him, sees him, passes by. We can't be certain at this point why neither one stopped to help. they would obviously have been, they should have been the heroes in the story. They knew what they should have done. They knew what the law said. Love your neighbor as yourself. We can't be certain. One possibility is that in seeing somebody beaten and left half dead on the side of the road, that they passed by to avoid becoming ceremonially unclean. Both of these guys would have been, they were functioning in the temple, performing duties in the temple, and if you become ceremonially unclean, you're going to be unable to fulfill your duties in the temple for a while, have to go through a pretty complicated set of rituals to become ceremonially clean again. Contact with bodily fluids makes you unclean, and this guy, well, he's bleeding all over the place. Contact with corpses makes you unclean if he turns out to be dead. Okay, we're just going to leave him alone. Then along comes the Samaritan. And the Samaritan walks over to him and stops to help. Now, who is the Samaritan? Samaritans and Jews mixed like oil and water. They got along about as well as cats and dogs do. Good Jews and good Samaritans did not like each other. And so the Samaritan would ordinarily have been the villain, or at least the antagonist, if the good Jew is telling the story. But the Samaritan stops to help him. Stops and helps him, carries him to an inn, does what first aid he can, and when he leaves the innkeeper some money to take care of him, with the promise, well, I'll be coming back, and anything else you spend, I'll pay you for. And so Jesus asks the question, who is the neighbor? Who proved to be the neighbor for the person who was in need? And obviously, the one who proved to be the neighbor was the one who showed him mercy. Now, there's something going on here which can be easily missed. Jesus, in essence, flips the script. Use an expression that we use. He flips the script. But the lawyer is trying to define neighbor as who do I have to show mercy to? Okay, who's my neighbor so that I can be merciful to that person? And this person is not my neighbor, so I don't have to be merciful to him. And Jesus turns it around and defines neighbor not by who you are showing mercy to, but defines neighbor by the act of showing mercy. In other words, he doesn't let the lawyer use his technicalities about who he can and show mercy to and who he doesn't have to show mercy to. He doesn't let the lawyer get away with his technicalities. Who is the neighbor? The neighbor is the one who is showing mercy. And we are told nothing about this victim. We are told nothing about the victim. Whether this person, presumably it is a man, but we're told nothing. Jew, Gentile, Samaritan, slave, or free, we know nothing about the victim. So the victim, the person receiving the mercy, is immaterial. Who the victim's identity is totally immaterial, because we're not told anything about the victim. The focus is entirely on the one showing the mercy, in this case the Samaritan. So Jesus' answer says, answers this way. The neighbor is the one who shows mercy. The neighbor is the one who shows mercy, and it doesn't matter who is receiving the mercy. Everyone should be. The neighbor is the one who shows mercy. Jesus' answer doesn't let the lawyer play technicalities. I have to be nice to this person, don't have to be nice to that person. And by extension, Jesus' answer doesn't let us do the same thing. It doesn't let us, play lawyer, as it were. I have to be nice to that person. I don't have to be nice to that person. It's just like when Jesus is talking with Peter, and Peter asked him how many times he must forgive. 7 times, and Jesus answered, depending upon the translation, 77 or 70 times 7. It's not that on the 78th time you can club somebody instead of forgiving, or 70 times 7, and the 491st time that you can club somebody. But rather, simply you will forgive, and in this case, you will show mercy. Being a neighbor is defined not by kin or proximity on the road, somebody who's your neighbor across the street or next door to you. Being a neighbor is defined by Jesus purely in terms of showing mercy. Neighbor is defined not as your kin or as somebody who lives next door or across the street from you. Jesus defines the neighbor as one who shows mercy. And this really shouldn't be surprising. In Micah 6:8, what does the Lord require of you, the prophet asked, but to do justice, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God. And Jesus, in his own words on the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy. Blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. Being a neighbor is defined not in terms of kin or how close you live to somebody, but being a neighbor, Jesus defines purely in terms of showing mercy. Which begs the question, if we are unwilling to show mercy to others, if we are unwilling to show mercy to others, how can we realistically expect to receive mercy? How can we realistically expect to receive mercy, especially from God? Jesus defines a neighbor not as who we show mercy to, or as how close a person is related to us, or where they live. Jesus defines a neighbor purely in terms of the one who is merciful. Go ye therefore and do likewise, as Jesus would put it. Have a great rest of your day.